The alien city was loud with voices until the sound of the war drums silenced everyone. The arena gates opened, and the guard commander stepped forward, his armor shining under the twin suns. He was huge, taller than any other alien in the crowd, his black and gold armor making him look like a moving fortress. The people cheered his name, their voices like thunder, but then the commander raised one hand, and the noise stopped instantly. His eyes scanned the rows of alien warriors before landing on a single human sitting among the guests. The human's name was Captain Daniel Ross. He had come here with Earth's delegation to sign a fragile peace treaty, but instead of greetings and diplomacy, he now found himself under the gaze of the deadliest warrior in the Empire. You, the commander's voice boomed, deep and heavy. You will fight me. The crowd gasped. Some even laughed. No human had ever fought in the great arena. They were seen as small, weak, and slow compared to the towering alien species. Daniel did not move at first. He simply stared back at the commander, his face calm. Then, to the shock of everyone, he stood up and said one word, yes. The crowd exploded in shouts and jeers. Some called him brave, others called him a fool. The commander's eyes narrowed slightly, as if measuring him from a distance. Then he pointed his blade straight at Daniel. You have until tomorrow, the commander said, his voice like a promise of death. Daniel walked down from the seating area, feeling hundreds of alien eyes on him. He knew the meaning behind this challenge. If he lost, the aliens would see humans as weak forever. If he won, Earth would gain respect in the eyes of the galaxy. It was more than a fight, it was a message. Later, in a quiet corridor of the alien fortress, Daniel was given a small room. There was no bed, just a mat on the floor and a table with a jug of water. An alien servant, smaller than the others, came to the doorway and whispered, "No one survives the commander's blade." Daniel only gave a small smile. "I'll see," he replied. That night, Daniel sat on the floor, polishing his sword. It was human steel, lighter than alien weapons, built for speed instead of raw power. He thought about the years he had spent as a soldier, about the battles in space, the close calls, and the moments when death had been a single breath away. He remembered something his old captain once told him, "You don't win by being stronger, you win by refusing to fall." Outside, the alien city was alive with noise. The streets were full of creatures placing bets, drinking, and telling stories about the duel. The guard commander's name was being shouted everywhere. They said he had fought in 100 battles, defeated war beasts, and never once been beaten. They said his blade could cut through starship armor. Daniel listened to the voices from his window, letting them fuel his focus. As midnight came, there was a knock on his door. Daniel looked up, expecting the servant again, but it was the guard commander himself. He stepped into the small room without asking, his massive presence filling the air. Daniel stayed seated, not giving him the satisfaction of standing. The commander placed something heavy on the table. It was a massive alien sword, its blade humming with strange energy. "You will fight with this," the commander said. Daniel glanced at the weapon, then back at the commander. "It's too heavy," he said plainly. The commander's eyes glinted with something like amusement. "Then you will lose," he replied, turning to leave. When the door closed, Daniel lifted the alien sword. It felt like holding a block of metal. He swung it once, slow but steady, feeling how it dragged through the air. He set it back down and picked up his OWN human blade, lighter and sharper in its own way. He knew he couldn't win with strength. He would have to fight with speed, precision, and something no alien here had seen before. The night passed. The fortress walls were cold and silent, but Daniel could hear the distant echo of drums deep in the city. Each beat was slow, steady, like the ticking of a giant clock counting down to the moment of the duel. He sat cross-legged on the floor, his sword resting beside him, the alien blade lying across the table like a threat. He had not touched the alien weapon again. It was too heavy, too slow for what he had in mind. A soft sound came from the doorway. Daniel looked up and saw the same alien servant from before, a thin, nervous creature with wide yellow eyes. "I should not be here," the servant whispered, glancing over his shoulder, "but I have seen the commander fight." Daniel raised an eyebrow, saying nothing, waiting for the servant to speak. "They will cheer for him until you fall," the servant said. "They always do." Daniel smiled faintly. "Then I'll have to make them cheer for me instead." The servant shook his head quickly. "You don't understand. The commander fights to test his enemies, and when they fail, he kills them." His voice dropped even lower. "They say no one has lasted more than 5 minutes against him." Daniel took that in. his mind already working through possibilities. 5 minutes was long enough to win. If he played it right. The servant hesitated, then reached into his robe and pulled out a small piece of metal. It was round, etched with strange alien markings. "This is a focus charm," he said. "Wear it, and it will make your movements harder to read." Daniel took it, feeling the cool metal against his palm. "Why help me?" he asked. The servant's eyes shifted. "Because once, a human saved my life." Before Daniel could reply, heavy footsteps echoed down the hall. The servant slipped away into the shadows, disappearing just before 2 alien guards appeared at the door. They carried a message. The commander wanted Daniel to see the arena before the duel. Daniel followed them through twisting corridors until they emerged into the open air. The arena was massive, the ground made of hard stone, the walls high and ringed with alien statues of past champions. At the far end stood a throne-like seat where the highest nobles would watch. Daniel walked across the floor, feeling the weight of the space, imagining the crowd that would fill it tomorrow. It was not just a place for fighting. It was a stage for history. He could almost hear the roars, the jeers, the chants of the commander's name, and he could picture himself standing here, victorious. A sudden voice broke his thoughts. "Do you feel fear, human?" Daniel turned and saw the guard commander himself, standing in the shadows at the edge of the arena. His armor was gone. He wore only a simple training vest, but even without the armor, he looked like a wall of muscle. Daniel shook his head slowly. "No," he said. The commander's eyes narrowed. "You will," he replied, stepping closer. For a long moment, they stood face to face, neither moving. Then the commander spoke again, his voice low but sharp. "I fought a human once, many years ago." Daniel's gaze sharpened. He was fast, clever, but he still died. The commander said. Daniel leaned slightly forward. "Then tomorrow, you'll see how a human wins." The commander's mouth curved into something that was almost a smile. Without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving Daniel alone in the empty arena. Daniel stood there for a while longer, feeling the stone beneath his boots, breathing in the cold night air. This was not just about survival anymore. Something deeper was moving beneath the surface. The commander had his own reasons for this fight, and Daniel intended to find them. When he returned to his room, he found the alien charm still on the table. He slipped it around his neck. The Eagle warm now from his hand. The war drums outside were louder, faster. The city was awake, alive, hungry for the blood of a challenger. Daniel closed his eyes, and for the first time that night, he allowed himself a single thought, not about fear, not about the fight, but about victory. The first light of the twin suns turned the alien city gold. Drums began to beat, deep and steady, shaking the stone streets. From every corner of the city, aliens poured toward the great arena. Merchants closed their stalls, warriors left their training yards, and nobles in bright robes took their seats high above the fighting ground. The air was thick with voices, bets, and the scent of strange spices and metal. Daniel stood in the shadowed tunnel beneath the arena. His sword rested in his hand, the alien charm hanging under his shirt. He could feel the vibrations of the crowd above, their energy like a living storm. A horn sounded, long and sharp, and the iron gate before him began to rise. Blinding sunlight hit him as he stepped into the open. The roar of the crowd slammed into his ears like a wave. Thousands of alien faces stared down at him, some curious, some hungry for his defeat. Chants of the commander's name rolled across the arena, drowning out everything else. Daniel walked to the center, his boots crunching against the pale stone floor. He did not look up, he did not wave. His eyes stayed locked on the far gate, because he knew who would walk through it. A low, heavy thud shook the ground, followed by another. Then the guard commander appeared. He wore his black and gold armor now, the plates gleaming as if polished for war. In his hands was the glowing alien blade, the same one he had dropped on Daniel's table last night. The crowd's roar reached its peak, their voices like thunder and wind. The commander stopped only a few steps from Daniel. Towering over him, the alien announcer's voice boomed across the arena. "This duel is to first blood, or death." The crowd cheered at the word, death. Daniel gave no reaction, his face unreadable. The commander raised his weapon in salute, a gesture that in alien tradition meant both respect and promise of a hard fight. Daniel raised his own sword slowly, the light blade glinting in the sun. The announcer dropped his hand, and the duel began. The commander moved first, his speed shocking for someone so large. His blade came down in a crushing arc meant to split stone. Daniel sidestepped, the weapon missing him by inches. sending sparks from the floor. The crowd roared with excitement. Daniel struck back, his blade flashing toward the commander's side, but the alien twisted, blocking with the flat of his massive sword. The sound rang out like a bell. They circled each other, the sun casting long shadows across the arena. The commander attacked again, faster this time. Daniel blocked the first strike, dodged the second, but the third came so close it sliced a thin line across his shoulder. Warm blood trickled down his arm. The crowd erupted. First blood, but not enough to end it. Daniel's eyes narrowed, his breathing steady. He had expected this. The first minutes were the commander's way of measuring his opponent. Daniel shifted his stance, lowering himself slightly, then he moved, faster than before, his strikes coming quick and sharp. The commander blocked each one, but for the first time, his feet moved back. The crowd noticed, their cheers shifting from pure commander chants to a mix of shouts. Some were now calling the human's name. Then it happened. Daniel feinted left, forcing the commander to raise his sword in defense. In the same heartbeat, Daniel pivoted and struck from the opposite side. The edge of his blade sliced across the commander's armor, leaving a mark and drawing a single drop of dark alien blood. The arena went silent. The commander looked down at the cut, then slowly, he smiled. Not a polite smile, but the kind that said the real fight was only about to begin. The drop of alien blood hit the stone floor, dark against the pale surface. The commander looked at it for a long moment, the crowd holding its breath. Then he raised his head, and something in his eyes had changed. The calm measure was gone. Now there was only fire. He came at Daniel like a storm. Every swing of his blade was faster, heavier, each strike ringing through the arena like thunder. Daniel blocked, dodged, rolled, each movement costing him energy. The commander was no longer testing, he was hunting. The crowd roared, the noise so loud it seemed to shake the air. Daniel's feet slid across the stone as he barely avoided a blow that would have shattered his ribs. His arms trembled from the force of each block. The alien charm around his neck pulsed faintly, almost as if it was alive. Daniel's mind worked in flashes. He could not match this strength head-on. He had to use what the commander did not expect: speed, angles, and timing. He dropped low, sliding under a wide arc of the alien blade, feeling the heat of its energy pass inches from his face. The crowd gasped. The commander turned, his movements smooth despite the heavy armor. He was smiling now, a sharp, dangerous smile. You fight like him, the commander said in a low voice meant only for Daniel. Daniel's eyes narrowed. Like who? He asked. The commander did not answer. Instead, he struck again, harder, faster. Daniel knew there was a story hidden in those words, a reason the commander was looking at him as if he was a shadow from the past. But there was no time to ask. The alien's next blow crashed down, and Daniel met it with his own sword. The impact sent a shockwave through both their arms. For a moment, their blades locked, their faces inches apart. Daniel leaned in, speaking through gritted teeth. Tell me after I win. The commander laughed, a deep, genuine laugh, and shoved him back. Daniel stumbled but caught his footing. The crowd was on its feet now, roaring in wild excitement. They had never seen anyone push the commander this far. Daniel decided it was time to risk everything. He feinted high, forcing the alien to lift his guard. Then he spun low, using the alien sword's shadow as cover, and drove his blade toward the gap in the commander's armor near his side. The edge hit true, slicing deeper than before. The commander hissed in pain, stepping back for the first time. Silence swept the arena. Even the announcer said nothing. The guard commander stood with one hand pressed to the wound, his breathing heavy. Then, without warning, he dropped his weapon. Gasps erupted from every corner of the stands. Daniel tensed, unsure if this was surrender or a trap. The commander straightened, towering over him without the sword. Enough steel, the alien said. Now, show me the fight behind your blood. He raised his fists. Daniel felt the air shift. The duel was no longer just about weapons. It had become something else, something raw. The next round would be fought skin to skin, strength to strength, and Daniel knew this was the moment the real test began. The alien crowd erupted in shock as the commander threw his weapon aside. Some shouted in protest, others in excitement, but no one dared question him. Daniel kept his guard up, his sword still in hand, unsure if this was a trick. The commander raised both hands, fists clenched, his eyes burning with challenge. Put it down, human, the commander growled. Daniel hesitated for only a second before lowering his blade. If the alien wanted a fight without weapons, then Daniel would meet him on equal ground. He dropped his sword to the stone floor, the sound ringing through the silent arena. The commander moved first, faster than Daniel expected for someone in heavy armor. A powerful punch aimed for Daniel's head. Daniel ducked, feeling the rush of air as it missed by inches. The alien's second strike came for his ribs, but Daniel blocked with his forearm, the impact sending pain up to his shoulder. This was no sparring match. Each hit could break bone. Daniel struck back, a sharp blow to the commander's side. Right where his armor was damaged, the alien grunted, but instead of stepping back, he leaned in closer, locking eyes with Daniel. "You fight like the one who saved me," the commander said, his voice low and fierce. Daniel's mind flashed with questions. Who was he? Daniel demanded. "A human," the commander answered. "Long before your people were known in these stars, they circled each other, the heat of the suns pressing down." Daniel's thoughts raced. Was this duel not about proving strength at all, but about testing something deeper? The commander came in again, but this time Daniel didn't dodge. He caught the alien's arm and twisted, using momentum to throw the much larger warrior to one knee. The crowd gasped. No one had ever forced the commander down. The alien looked up at him, breathing hard. "You carry his spirit," he said, "but I must know if you carry his heart." Before Daniel could answer, the commander surged up, grabbing him around the torso and slamming him into the ground. Stone bit into Daniel's back, but he rolled away before the alien's knee could pin him. The fight was becoming more brutal, raw strength against speed and will. Daniel used the alien charm's faint energy to shift his movements unpredictably. He struck with short, sharp blows, aiming at weak points in the armor. The commander blocked some, took others, and kept coming. It was like fighting a wall that refused to fall. The crowd was no longer chanting one N. Aim, they were chanting both, half roared for the alien, half for the human. For the first time in the arena's history, a human's name echoed through the alien capital. Then, in a sudden break, the commander stepped back, blood dripped from a cut above his eye, his chest rising and falling with deep breaths. "You have passed the first measure," he said. Daniel tilted his head, confused. This was never just a duel, the commander continued. It was a choice. Before Daniel could speak, the commander looked to the noble's throne and shouted for all to hear, "If this human wins, the treaty stands, and I will stand with him." Gasps filled the arena. Daniel now understood. The commander's loyalty to the treaty was not guaranteed. This fight was the trial, and the outcome would decide the fate of Earth's future in the galaxy. The moment the commander's words reached the noble's throne, the entire arena erupted. Some nobles shouted in anger, others leaned forward with sudden interest. The crowd was divided. Half wanted Daniel to win, half wanted him crushed, but all of them knew this was no longer just a duel. It was a decision that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. The commander wiped the blood from his eye, then raised both fists again. "Now," he said, "we finish." Daniel nodded, his breathing heavy, sweat running down his face. Every muscle in his body ached, but his eyes stayed locked on the alien. He knew the next few minutes would decide everything. The commander charged. A blur of black and gold. Daniel sidestepped, striking the alien's side, but the blow barely slowed him. The next punch came hard enough to rattle Daniel's teeth even through his block. Pain shot up his arm, but he forced himself to stay in the fight. The two moved in a storm of strikes, blocks, and counters. Every hit echoed through the arena like a drum. Daniel ducked under a heavy swing and drove his knee into the alien's ribs. The commander grunted but spun, catching Daniel in the side with a crushing elbow. Daniel stumbled, nearly going to one knee. The alien crowd roared. They could smell the end coming, but Daniel forced himself up. He remembered his old captain's words. "You don't win by being stronger, you win by refusing to fall." His vision cleared, his stance sharpened. He would not fall. The commander came again, but this time Daniel didn't retreat. He stepped forward, inside the alien's reach. His fist struck fast. One to the jaw, one to the ribs, one to the wound he'd opened earlier. The commander staggered back, and for the first time, his foot slipped. The crowd gasped. Daniel saw his chance. He moved with speed born from every battle he had survived. His final strike was not to kill, but to end. A precise blow to the alien's chest, right above the heart. The commander fell to one knee, breathing hard. The arena went silent. Daniel stepped back, giving the alien space. The commander looked up at him with something between pride and relief. "You could have killed me," he said. Daniel's voice was steady. "I didn't come here to kill." Slowly, the commander rose to his full height, then, in front of the nobles and the roaring crowd, he extended his hand. Daniel took it, the two warriors gripping each other's forearms. The crowd exploded in cheers. It was over. But the consequences had only just begun. The cheers from the arena were like a living wave, rolling and crashing through the air. Daniel and the guard commander still stood locked in that warrior's handshake. Every alien in the stands was on their feet, their voices shaking the very walls. In the nobles' box, some looked furious, others watched with cautious respect. The duel was over, but its echo would carry far beyond these walls. The commander turned, raising Daniel's arm high for all to see. "This human," he shouted, his voice booming across the arena, "is my equal." The crowd roared louder. His sound rising into the sky. Daniel felt the weight of that moment, not just as a fighter, but as a man carrying the name of all humanity. Then the commander stepped forward, lowering his voice so only Daniel could hear. "The human I fought long ago," he said, "was your blood." Daniel froze, his grip tightening. "My father," the commander continued, "he saved my life on the battlefield, and I swore I would repay that debt." Daniel's heart pounded. His father had died when he was young, and no one had ever told him the full story. "This duel," the commander said, "was my way of seeing if you were worthy of that same honor." Daniel understood now. It had never been about pride or politics alone. It was about legacy, about trust, about proving that the blood that once saved an alien life still carried the same courage. The commander turned back to the noble's throne. "I stand for the treaty," he declared, "and I stand with Earth." The nobles could not challenge him. His victory in the arena gave him the right to decide. A ripple of murmurs spread through the political elite. Some saw opportunity, others saw danger, but no one could undo what had just been witnessed. As the arena began to empty, the commander walked with Daniel through the underground passage. They spoke little, but there was a mutual respect between them now. When they reached the gate of the fortress, the commander stopped. "You are not just your father's son," he said, "you are your own warrior." Daniel gave a small smile. "And you're not just a commander," he replied, "you're a friend." The alien's eyes softened, though his voice remained deep and steady. "Friends fight beside each other," he said, "not against." Outside, the alien city was alive with noise. Merchants called Daniel's name, children ran alongside him, and even hardened soldiers gave small nods of respect. Word of the duel had already spread. The human who faced the guard commander and did not fall. In the streets, it was no longer just the commander's name they chanted, but Daniel's as well. That night, Daniel stood on the balcony of the human embassy. The stars above were brighter than he had ever seen. He thought of his father, of the promise he had unknowingly fulfilled, and he thought of the new promise he carried now, to protect the peace he had fought for. In the shadows of the city, not everyone celebrated. Far away, in a dark chamber, another alien watched the recording of the duel. His eyes were cold, his voice a whisper. "This human thinks he has won," he said, "but his real fight has not yet begun." The stars above the alien world shone on. The duel was over, but the story of Captain Daniel Ross was only just beginning.